The chef is.
So now,
Oh man, you know we did a practice run yesterday, and this is one of the questions. That's a very interesting question. Like, how do you discover queerness? How do you discover sexuality? I think is the question I would throw back, right? You see something and you get curious. So I think I took a class on heteronormativity, and I didn't realize first of all I was grown up as homophobes. You know, I just thought, yeah, you know, we hate the gays and that's it. Like, it's not homophobic. And so I took a class on heteronormativity, and I was really brought to these ideas of, like, you know, what it means to exist in a society that just normalizes heterosexuality as the only option. And it made me start to question if I maybe, you know, was repressing some things that I could possibly enjoy just because I had grown up in a culture that was very repressive towards, I guess, fluidity and sexuality. And so I just wanted to kiss a girl, and that's all I wanted to do. And then I kissed a girl, and we broke up a year and a half later, and I was like, okay, maybe like this is something more than just, you know, wanting to kiss a girl. And I really enjoyed the relationship that we had, and like the softness that women have. And for a long time I thought I was just like a lesbian, and then it took me a while to get back and realize that I can have this broad spectrum of attraction to people that isn't based on a gender, but it's based on who they are as people. So I think I started out as a lesbian, and then I ended up as a queer person like maybe 5 years later. Wow, so I left Kenya when I was very young, and I wasn't really dating because my mom might watch this. I never dated ever until I was an adult. So I left Kenya when I was about 17. I moved to the US, and you know, I dated like some white boys for a while because where I lived was Minnesota and there was nothing else for white boys. Then I met this lovely woman who I had a kiss with, and I think for me that was so revealing about like just how much more there is. And so I've dated a variety of people who identify, you know, as men, women, non-binary, transgender, people who reject gender at all. I've dated people who are much older than me. I've dated people who are slightly younger than me. I've dated problematic people. I've dated people who are addicts. I've dated like a wide spectrum of people. Am I answering this question? I am. Okay, great. What else can I say about, I mean, race for me is like, I used to be a non-factor, and now increasingly it is in terms of like who I want to date, because I used to think I can date anybody. But I think the more woke you get, the more you realize you really need someone who aligns with how you present in the world and how you appear. So race is increasingly something that I think about when it comes to dating. But yeah, I think I'm open to the world, except in some ways I'm not. Take sip. I'm into getting my vagina eaten. I just want to say that right now for everyone. But I reciprocate, so I just want to be clear on that. Sex, I think, is really difficult, particularly as women, because we're not taught to question our pleasure, or even like think of our pleasure as like this thing that we can explore, like, right? There's a lot of shame around women who want to be sexual, right? So you're a slut, you're a prostitute, you're a hoe, and so it takes a while to kind of like undo those ideas that you get. And so I mean, I had a lot of terrible sex when I was in my 20s, like terrible sex. If you're having terrible sex right now, just know you don't have to, you can stop. And I wish someone had told me like, it's okay, this isn't how it's supposed to be, right? So I think I'm having increasingly good sex now because I am discerning about like what I want. I can communicate better and say, oh, that's actually not working, you know, more pressure, let's try this, let's do that. I don't think I have a lot of kinks, right? Like, and so the thing that I found is that I would be talking to people, and we talk about, you know, what we've been doing with our lives for so long, and then towards the end of the conversation they'd be like, so, you know, you're queer? And I was like, yeah, you know, I'm homosexual, that's fine. And then they would always have like some story of like, well, you know, I hooked up with a girl once, oh, you know, I date women occasionally, oh, you know, I think women give the best head, or like, oh yeah, I kissed a guy once. And so I kept discovering these queer stories that I would never have had access to if it hadn't been for my visibility, and that like was so affirming, just to be like, okay, there's a shit ton of queerness here, we're just not identifying it or talking about it. And then again, because I was really out, my sister had worked with Karî, who was with the National Gay and Lesbian Human Rights Commission. They had been in law school together. So immediately week 2, she's like, I know some homosexuals. I'm going to introduce you to them, and you guys are going to like do something together. So I found this like a badass community of just queers who were, you know, wanting to really shake the table and say, we're here and we're not going anywhere. And that really empowered me to like stay in my truth, because I think, you know, that there's the fear that I would have maybe regressed in like who I was, but because I was surrounded by a community of people who wanted to make some change and increase room for queerness and visibility and protection, it was much smoother to transition back than I expected. Yeah. It's right violence and all of that, and so I have this notion that maybe like then that carries into your day-to-day interactions with the men in like a violent kind of way, where
it's kind of like
deep sighs. Define dating.
seeing somebody on the reg.
Yeah.
You on the reg.
Definitely. I mean, I dated, but it was problematic, right? And I think we've had a discussion about this before around how you have to kind of hide yourself as a queer person. And working for the commission exposed me to just how violent it could be for queer people, because the commission is basically responding to legal cases of, you know, gay, lesbian, trans people who have been violated in the worst ways. And so every day you're reading these very horrific stories of what can happen to you if you're not being fit into the norm of what people think you should be. And so that for me was really difficult to even think about being in a relationship with another woman. And I think it also drove why I think my first relationship in Kenya was with a man, because it just felt so much safer. And I think I can't undervalue that feeling of safety that like women need to feel in their bodies, because like there's just so much violence you face. And for me it was just, I needed to feel safe, and queer relationships didn't feel safe for me at the time. And over time I did have some relationships with some women, but in the back of my mind was always just this question of, are we going to get in a cab and, you know, my partner would want to reach for my hand and I have to tell them don't touch my hand, because this cab driver, I read a story once where this lesbian couple was in the back of a car and they touched hands or they kissed and then were taken somewhere and you know, beaten terribly. And so in the back of your head you just can't fully, you know, be with your person. And so I'm there with my girlfriend, I wouldn't say girlfriend, a person I'm dating, and we're at a table with like other heterosexual couples, and they can kiss and they can like express love, and it's just, it's not fair, right? So I don't think I got the full experience of dating in Kenya that I would have liked to get, because I was so fearful of what it means to love a woman in this space. And so that yeah, I didn't get a full experience, but I did date a little bit. And you know, it's problematic as usual just to date women. Women are problematic to date. But like, you try, because like they're really nice also. And they're cute and they're soft, yeah.
We were going to do a whole